Now it's my honor to introduce Dr. Eric Pierce. Eric is uniquely qualified to tell you about the state of the art in retinal research, clinical trials, and the global pipeline. Eric is director of the Ocular Genomics Institute and associate director of the Berman-Gund Laboratory for Retinal Degenerations at Harvard Medical School and Mass Eye and Ear Infirmary. The Berman-Gund Laboratory, you may recognize one of those names, was established in 1974 with a gift to Harvard Medical School from the co-founders of the Foundation Fighting Blindness, Bernard Berman and Gordon Gund. Most impressive to me, Eric is the chairman of the Foundation's Scientific Advisory Board, a group of world preeminent researchers and business leaders who vet all grant applications and determine where the foundation is going to commit its precious resources. Eric is therefore as in the know about what is going on in research and clinical trials as anyone in the world. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. This is a phenomenal group of people. Yes. Excuse me? Oh. I want to thank you all for being here tonight, is really all I wanted to say. And please welcome Dr. Eric Pierce.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Good evening, everyone. That's a pretty hard act to follow, but I'll do my best. It's a great honor to be asked to serve as a spokesperson for FFB this evening. I feel like I've actually been promoted, since this is something that the president of the foundation, the CEO of the foundation, Bill Schmidt, or Gordon often do. But like I say, I'll try my best. I was asked to talk about FFB's role in funding research directed towards improving our understanding of the causes of inherited retinal degenerative disorders, and then using that information to develop treatments for these diseases. Part of this is easy, because what FFB has accomplished in the past 40 years is nothing short of remarkable. You've heard about some of this through the video we just saw. I guess I would focus in on one part of this to get started, which is by helping start the Berman-Gund Lab at Harvard and Mass Eye and Ear in 1974, which was the first lab dedicated to the study of inherited retinal degenerations. FFB helped create, in a sense, the field of retinal degeneration research. The field has now grown into a worldwide network of investigators studying retinal degenerative disorders, and FFB now supports 15 dedicated research centers and funds research studies by 130 different investigators at 70 institutions around the world. And that's just part of it. FFB continues to fund investigators often in the early stage of research trying to identify potential treatments for retinal disease. And often that early research then supports applications for funding from other organizations such as the National Eye Institute. So FFB funding is often, as we've just heard the word, generative, and dollars FFB provides can be multiplied many times over. As you've heard, based on, in part, the research supported by Foundation Fighting Blindness, we've reached a very exciting time in the retinal degeneration research field. Work initiated in the lab is now leading to clinical translation of the science and clinical trials of potential treatments for inherited retinal disorders. And you heard Alan mention briefly a great example of that, which is the trials of gene therapy for the RPE65 form of Leber congenital amaurosis, the early onset severe form of blindness that some of the children in the video have. It's very exciting that multiple centers are doing these trials, and the results from those studies continue to be positive. And that particular therapy is now in phase 3 trials, which is very exciting. Phase 1 trials for 4 other genetic forms of inherited retinal disease are now in progress as well. And there are multiple other potential gene and genetic therapies in the pipeline, including 6 that are now in the pre-IND or preclinical phase, funded by the WIN-GUND Translational Research Acceleration Program of the Foundation Fighting Blindness. So at this critical phase in our research field, FFB has created the FFB Clinical Research Institute, or CRI, with the goal of helping bring potential therapies like these into clinical trials. The goal of the FFB CRI is to help develop and catalyze partnerships with investigators, biotech and drug companies, and venture capital firms to jointly bring potential therapies that have demonstrated promise in the lab into clinical and human use. The symposium on an innovation in retinal research tomorrow is directed towards that goal, and we're all looking forward to an exciting and productive day. So I think that's a critical phase we're in, trying to move even more therapies from the lab into the clinic, and obviously that's what drives us all. But I can't help but take a moment, since I've got the podium, to also say that while the clinical translation is important, I also think the traditional mission of the Foundation Fighting Blindness remains critically important. That is, to continue funding research, laboratory-based work, to identify new potential therapies that can ultimately address all the different kinds of inherited retinal disease. And I think you know that's where many of you come in. Thank you for your continued support of the Foundation Fighting Blindness. The funding you provide helps us all work together to develop treatments and cures for inherited retinal degenerative disorders. So, all right, that was the easy part. Now comes the harder part of my job this evening, which is to introduce Gordon Gund. So what can I say about Gordon? It's hard because Gordon's one of my heroes. It's an honor to work with him. It's an honor to help serve the Foundation Fighting Blindness and help advise the board of directors about scientific issues. It's inspiring to do this work, and inspiring to think about what Gordon and the foundation have achieved. As you just heard, Gordon and his wife Luli were part of the small group of affected individuals and their family members who founded FFB in 1971. Gordon was motivated by, as you heard, by being affected with retinitis pigmentosa and having that affect his vision. But over the past 40 years, Gordon has helped make FFB about helping everybody with inherited retinal diseases. And that's pretty inspiring. So I feel like I've actually stepped up in the world here. When I get to introduce Gordon, I feel like I'm actually playing, kind of warm-up group to a real star. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Foundation's Chair of the Board, Gordon Gund. You're welcome, Gordon.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Eric, very much for that thoughtful introduction. I knew when we gave you the podium, we'd hear both sides of that issue, and thank you for bringing it up, because you're absolutely right. It's all about balance. But also, most of all, I want to thank Eric as the chairman of our scientific advisory board for the terrific job he's doing, and similarly for the very important, very exciting and promising research he is doing and directing. So thank you, Eric. And let's, excuse me. And I'd like to say welcome to everybody, and thank you all for being here and for supporting the foundation and its research efforts, a very highly promising and increasingly successful research efforts to find treatments and cures for blinding diseases. I must say it's very exciting for me, and that was my wife, Luli, who I guess I really should also introduce to start with. Sorry about that. Luli is also a co-founder and has done a fabulous job over the last 42 years in not only running the Princeton, New Jersey chapter of the foundation, but providing a lot of wisdom to the organization nationally and beyond. When Alan Spiro was talking, I couldn't help thinking, if he's tired, he has every reason to be. He has done a phenomenal job. Alan, you really have done a great job in not only putting this dinner together and driving it through the way you have, but also in working on tomorrow's symposium, which is terrific. Here's a round of applause for Alan. I hope you all enjoy the dining in the dark tonight. Those of you who haven't had the experience will understand this even better, maybe because they already do, those that have, that when my wife sometimes threatens me with a surprise party for one birthday or another, I say, don't worry about that. Every party I go to is a surprise. and she still threatens me. But anyway, this being here is a major homecoming for the foundation every year, because this is really the site where the research really got started. When we started in 1971, as you heard, there were just a handful of families that all shared the same common goal of trying to find ways to treat or cure retinal degenerative diseases. And at that time, I had just lost my sight, as Alan mentioned, a year before from RP. All I had left, and I still have a little, is light sensitivity way out on the periphery of my retina. But I don't see anything else, and I couldn't then. And I tried a few treatments as my eyesight was going relentlessly deteriorating, as the way these diseases work. I tried some treatments that were non-scientific, and needless to say, they didn't work. But that was what really convinced us at the outset, and from then on, we've been dedicated to only funding, strictly funding scientifically based research. And when we started, there was almost no knowledge about these diseases or about the retina, and there was very little research going on. So it was very clear that we had to start from the beginning and take our first step. And the first step was to start the first of its kind multidiscipline laboratory to study these diseases. You see, there wasn't any then. There were no laboratories. There were one or two people doing research, and valiantly so, but by themselves, no multidisciplined effort. And we decided we wanted to do it through Harvard University, and we wanted to do it under the direction of Dr. Elliot Burson at the Mass Eye and Ear Infirmary. And that was really the rallying cry around which we built the foundation to begin with. And thankfully today, and during that time, I should say, between then and now, Elliot and his colleagues have developed several therapies that have helped patients with certain of these diseases from losing their sight, and really slowed the degeneration in some cases, giving people as much as 20 more years of useful vision than they might have had without these vitamin supplement therapies that Elliot has done trials on. But today, that same laboratory, under Elliot's continuing direction and that of Eric Pierce, is doing some of the best research on the retina in the world. So it's a very exciting thing, and that's where we started. But when we started, we also knew that as lay people, we weren't going to be able to decide what the best science was or take full advantage of new technologies without a world-class scientific advisory board. And one of the people, you heard him introduced earlier, that was most instrumental in our getting that advisory board started back in 1972 was John Dowling. John, thank you. So another guy from Cambridge and was the head of the Department of Biology in those days at Harvard when he helped us get this done. And what it also entailed was attracting young people, newly minted MDs, clinicians, and PhDs, basic scientists, into the field, because there were really very few. And he was extremely helpful, and the Scientific Advisory Board has been really one of the most remarkable assets of the foundation over the years. So we also have a lot of other ties to the Boston area. Of course, there are wonderful academic institutions here, and so a lot of great research, very talented people being attracted here, and a lot of innovative commercial interest in those things. So it's just a fertile ground for us for retinal research and for clinical trials. We also have a major chapter here that has been with us for more than 30 years. A lot of people involved with it, some of them for almost that long, are here in the room, and they've raised millions of dollars over the years for this research. And tonight I'd like to honor one family that's part of that chapter. I'd like to pay tribute to them. They lost their patriarch last December, Tufik Hajar. Tufik was a remarkable man, a wonderful family man, a tremendous businessman, and a remarkable philanthropist to a lot of causes, not just to ours. And we will always remember him with great admiration, great respect, and great fondness. Tufik was... In his memory, their uncle, Ann and Chuck Hajar, made a significant donation recently directed towards Usher's research. You see, 3 of Tufik's and Linda's 5 children have Usher syndrome, which means they are not only subject to vision loss, but also hearing loss. And a remarkable group. One more round of applause. There are a lot of the Hajars here. You see, it all begins with family trying to do their utmost for their own. And part of that is to invest in the Foundation Fighting Blindness, which I'm proud to say has given a great return on that investment over the last 42 years, and is at the threshold of providing much more of a return to that. With a lot of breakthroughs, you heard about many of them. I mean, just imagine, we can slow the progress of some of these diseases by surgically implanting a tiny protein dispensing capsule in the back of the eye, and that can slow down or halt the progress of some of these diseases. You also probably have heard about this bionic eye that just got FDA approval. It's called Argus 2, and it's very helpful now in the current generation to people with very limited or no vision. Someday they'll increase the size, the amount of pixels, and it'll give more and more information. I'm proud to say we had a lot to do with making that possible, that new technology possible in the first place with early stage financing. A great example of venture philanthropy. And also, you heard about the gene therapy for young children that has restored their vision and is a platform for a lot more therapies to come. These breakthroughs and many others are leading to a lot of clinical trials. And of course, that's where you have to go in order to get FDA approval and in order to get these things out to the marketplace. But those cost significant amounts of money, tens of millions of dollars in many cases. And so as we look forward, in order to keep the momentum going, which we all desperately want to do, we need to increase the amount of money we raise. We need, over the next 10 years, to raise as much as we've raised over the last 40 plus years. That's more than $500 million. That's our goal. We need to do it because we need to do it for the Day family. You saw Derek and Meredith and Louis McGee in the video, and for the Hajar family, and for 10 millions more families around the world. We want to get this job done. We need to do it so they have a brighter future. So my wife, Luli, and I thank you all for being here. We hope after you've been through this Dining in the Dark experience, you'll understand even better why your support means so much. Thank you all very much.